association market, and now we have entered the not-for-profit market, and I was hired to bring on all the fundraising functionality into our software. And I have been in fundraising since the dawn of the dinosaurs. I know I don't look it, I'm 74, but I want you all to know when I started in fundraising back in the mid-'80s, and I was training telemarketers, our cutting-edge fundraising was we used to mail out a 3-page lead letter. What's that?
Yeah, there's no way.
I might be 84. We used to mail out a 3-page lead letter that was double-spaced, underlined, had the PS statement front and back, right? And we would mail it out to the donors and the prospects, and we would ask them not to. We didn't give them a BRE. They had no business reply envelope. We basically asked them to wait for a telephone call, and we were a telemarketing shop, and then we would come in with the telephone call. Anybody guess how we did? Whether or not that was effective? No, you blew it out of the water. Are you kidding me? No, this is 1984. People answered their phones. If you had caller ID, that was something, that was a big deal, right? Your answering machine was this big.
Wow.
No, we had every major organization you can imagine, but that was cutting edge for the time. So, here we go. What the frack is SOBI, right? That's my little abbreviation for social business intelligence. First of all, does everybody know what frack is? Any Battlestar Galactica fans? Right? You know what frack is? I don't need to say what it is. It's brilliant, doesn't it? Substitute that word for frack. I love it. Does anybody know what social business intelligence? In the other session, it's going to be hard for me to hear you guys, so I'm just going to go ahead and tell you what it is. The definition that I like to use, social BI are those activities committed by individuals that primarily exist out of transactions or implied or explicit demographics. So this is behavior, right? This is behavior that we're talking about. So this is about social media. We talk about social media. Lots of time we're talking about amplification of your message, but we're also talking about the behavior of the people that you're engaging with. And for this session, we're going to be talking about, I think what we'll find out is a lot of you are actually not storing any sort of social behavior in your database, and a lot of it is also because we can't necessarily get at it at the moment. So, does anybody know what this is? This is amazing. This is actual social business intelligence, regular intelligence. This was published by the New York Times. This is the Pentagon's Afghan Stability Plan. Right? Afghan Stability Plan. If you look in the very middle of that, I don't know if you can see it, it says population conditions and beliefs, and then there's all sorts of arrows that come out, right? So what's the middle? That sort of behavior, right? And based on people, what's going on in that population, the beliefs depends on how you take those arrows. So I just want you all to know when you are upset and think that people are not following the process and you need a better boost management and a better workflow, this is the U.S. government who has more money than God, right? Nobody can spend more money on the defense than the USA, and that is what they use in the field, right? I'm just always shocked by that picture, so don't feel bad, right? Money isn't the answer to all of your work problems. So, simple. Again, you're tracking social behavior. And of course, all of your donors are happy and skipping rope and jumping and all that kind of good stuff, right? So, 4 types of donor attributes and stuff. We're not going to spend a lot of time. I don't want to bore you to death, but I just want you to start to think and recognize stuff on my wire. Some of the different things that there are. We have transactional, right? You get something for something. Quid pro quo. Transactional, usually most of us obviously realize that's a donation in our fundraising world. Behavioral. This is social. Response to a particular situation or stimulus. They do something because you're pushing them that way, or you know how it is, anybody's planned a surprise party before, and it's always amazing how you can corral the person to the place you want and they never know it, right? So you can actually affect behavior by some of these things. Implicit is implied. It's implied. I may say the best people that perform on my file are area code zip code 6057 in Chicago on Lakeshore Drive. The implication being that everybody that lives in that zip code has money. Or, if it was an explicit demographic, I would say, I screened my file, and all the following people have $2 million plus in assets, right? It's explicit, it's not implied. So, transactional, information, behavioral, implicit, or explicit. So, I'm going to ask you, and it's going to be hard in this audience, so I actually maybe to stand up. What do you actually think some of the most important characteristics of your best performing donors are? I'm going to pull up a little worksheet here. Tell me some somebody, again, thinking about your file, when you were sitting in a group and your board of directors said, Ginny, tell me the best characteristics of our top donors, what would you say to them? You're going to have to shout it out. Loyalty. I put this all on Pat. And if I can't spell it right, it's because spell check doesn't work on Pat. Who else? Engaged. We'll only do 10 of these today. Give me another one. To the left side. You guys are a little asleep over here. What's going? And I got chocolate in here. I got Reese's peanut butter cups.
Oh, really?
And I got Reese's too. Anybody, give me a characteristic. Come on.
Educated.
Your boss is watching.
Monthly donor.
They're a monthly donor, so that's awesome. What else?
Well educated.
Education level. Come on, left side. Married. Interesting. Marriage equals stability until it doesn't, right? Marriage. That's marriage. Marriage. Maybe some of you are starting to track partner, spouse, yeah? Actually, once, if gay marriage happens, then we can just finally just say married and get rid of partner, spouse, right? What else? Tied to the mission. So wealth. Let me say wealth, let me say it again. Give me two more. Dedicated. Nope, let's say that. Give me another one. Aren't there some basic ones, right? Sex, ethnicity, I don't know how to spell that. Hair color can be applied or explicit, correct, ladies, right? Okay. Anything else? All right, let's go with those. So, back up to here. So, given that we had behavioral, transactional, implied, or explicit, look, when I say loyalty, if I can get over there. You know, do you think loyalty, what characteristic do you think loyalty is? Behavioral. I had somebody do this at my session. It was like, whoa. Okay. Engaged. Behavioral. Behavioral, yes? You know, I just can't get those up arrow keys. Monthly donor, transactional, education level. Explicit, right? You know you have the PhD or MBA or the graduated from Boston College, like I did. Marriage, partner, spouse, that could be implied or explicit, right? I'm just joking. We'll just call it explicit for now. Tied to the mission. Well, if I'm rich, is that explicit? It can be, correct? You've done a file search, or implied, right? It's implied because I live in Lake Forest on the north side of Chicago on the lake, or I've done a screening and I know I have 4 million in assets. Dedicated. Behavioral. Or implied. Somebody say implied. We'll say behavioral. Sex. We'll say that's explicit. Ethnicity. That can be implied or explicit, yeah? Okay, interesting. I can tell that all of you are on the second day of the conference because in my educational session, almost everybody gave me everything that was transactional, which is mostly what you're keeping on your file. Now you guys are like loyal, engaged, and you're giving me all the conference crap back at me. But anyway, it's a good, it's something good to remember because a lot of this stuff, so for instance, loyalty, it's difficult, right? So let's just take loyalty, we're not going to have time to go through all of these. But if I say that somebody is loyal on my file, think about what you're currently capturing. Social media, fundraising, whatever it might be. That's incredibly hard, isn't it, to do the overlay of reports you're going to have to pull to get the analysis to say they're a loyal person, right? You might say they're loyal because they've been with us for 5 years, right? So it could be a time thing. But that's still behavioral. But outside of that, gauging the loyalty to your mission, really outside of money, maybe participation in events, whatever, it gets a little more complicated than you know that you gave them, that they gave you $100, right? A monthly donor, that's an easy thing to know, right? Loyalty, maybe it's just easier for them, who knows? But the point being, what I just want you to think about is behavioral stuff and getting that behavior isn't always the easiest thing in the world to get at. And a lot of what you're going to get in social media, and I'm going to see what my next slide is before I talk. All right, so these were our characteristics again. So a lot of what you're going to get in social media, and I know that there was a measurement session, a lot of it is really sentiment, right? The amplification of your message, really the most social basic thing is who shared my message, who shared my link, who sent out my video. And obviously if that's originating from you, it's a lot easier for you to track that back into your database than it is for you to have something going out there, and you never get to know who the person is. But there are plenty of companies that can measure sentiment, right? And there are some things that can actually pull back, and I'm going to tell you, and I can't wait to get it, I've had complete epiphany at this conference. I knew I was onto something, and then I've heard it repeated in a couple sessions, and I can't wait to go back and build it out more in my database, and I'm not going to give it away yet. But looking at all these things, transactional, behavioral, implicit, explicit, my question is, how do you know it? When I sit down with our clients, we talk about it, we start to score. We're going to do engagement scoring, we're going to do social media scoring what's in your database. How do you know that those are the most basic characteristics of your top performers in your file? Well, maybe you've analyzed your file, right? You had your file actually screened, and now it's been verified, right? You backdated it, you look at like, wow. And I went in and used, oh, there's gum up here, that's what it is. There's gum on the floor. When I go into my file, and I've had it screened, I know that all the most common characteristics, because I'm tracking a lot of things, there are 10 characteristics that everybody shares. You guess? That's okay, as long as you go back and verify it, right? There's an old member, an old board member. I mentioned they can tell you a lot of times what's on the file, but they're also wrong a lot of times too, the best characteristic. Or how many of you would say you actually have a sort of a clue, but you couldn't really, if your board member said, give me the top 10 right now, then you know for a fact what are the top performing characteristics of your donors. Could you raise your hand and say, I know what they are? Who says they don't have a clue, or you're somewhat of a clue? Somewhat of a clue? Raise your hand high and say somewhat of a clue. Who has absolutely knows 100%? Okay, perfect. Then I can keep going with my conversation. So, does anybody know what these are? Yeah, right? Isn't this great? Anybody at Penelope's session this morning? What Penelope said, one of the most useless pieces of data you can have is what their last gift amount was. It tells you absolutely nothing about what inspired them or de-inspired them to give that amount of money. Right? It's the worst thing you can do. Y bunch, psi bunch, 0 to 24.99. You know what? We've been using this since the age of the dinosaurs. And I'm not saying that this isn't important, but this tells you nothing social about anything on your file. It tells you nothing. It's important still. How many people still segment our fundraisers? Or at least sometimes, right? You have it, right? Doesn't tell me who's logging. Doesn't tell me who really loves me. Doesn't tell me much at all except for a transactional amount of dollars. And so to build any type of engagement on this kind of data, not going to be that deep, is it? So, what industry do you think has been using social BI, social behavior, observing social behavior since the beginning of time? And I'll tell you the two things it's not. It's not prostitution, that's what somebody said, and everybody perks up in the room. And it's not religion. It might be, but I don't think so. Think about it. Who would have, so when I look at that, think about your events. When you're at events and you're watching people do this and that, you might learn some things about what to do next year, where to put the table, who to put your board members with, that kind of stuff. What do you think, what industry has used social BI before ever even knew what it was? And I'll get you, what? Restaurants, that's close enough to get a candy on the floor. Who else?
Like Target and Target and Walmart do an amazing job of it.
Target and Walmart, because Target and Walmart have been here since the birth of Jesus Christ, absolutely. Who else?
I got two.
Disney. Disney has also been here since the beginning of time. Absolutely. All right. So clearly you guys, You're forward thinking, which is amazing because your time frame only goes back to the 60s or 50s. Government. Maybe. That's a good one. But here's what I have in mind. Merchants. Trade routes. They've been looking at the way people cross the mountains, where they congregated in the streets to trade their wares or sell their wares. They were always observing social behavior, right? They were watching social behavior to see where to shut up their cart, where they should get them on the trade routes. That goes back to, I think, before organized religion or government, right? We were probably more tribal than government at the time, but that goes way, way back. And the reason that I wanted to bring this up is to not get, I know you're hearing a lot of stuff out here about monitoring and this, that, and the other thing with social media, but to me, the most powerful part of social media is the stuff that I can already observe in the physical world that I can now sort of do in the digital world. So let's use the example of a major donor event. And I said this before. I watch people congregate. Somebody comes up to me and says, John, you really got to talk to Mrs. Jones. She loves the mission of the organization. You guys should have lunch. She's fantastic, really. I'm going to leave you guys talk, and I'm going to go away. That could have been a volunteer board member. It could have been anybody, right? What do you feel at the end of the event? What's the first thing you do after, everybody's gone, you can finally have a glass of wine because you were smart, did not drink during your event because you wanted to be on target, right? You're drinking, your staff is there. What is the first thing you sort of talk about with the event? Anybody? Come on. 5, 4, follow-up, good, that's good, but I'm thinking even before follow-up, you just lost the week. After the event, we know, right? The week after the event, it doesn't tell us. Thank you.
Evaluation.
I'm going to go ahead with evaluation. So evaluation, but deeper than that is the sentiment, right? Did people have a good time? Was it successful? What was the feeling that people came away from my event? That's beautiful. The problem with events is if you have a file of 20,000, 50,000, a million, it's really hard to reach all those people, isn't it? So what I like to think about social media is those kinds of things that you can observe at an event, a lot of times you can observe that in social media. Who shared your information, right? So that could be as simple as in the past, somebody passed out flyers. You could actually watch a volunteer pass out flyers. Now you can send an email out to somebody and you can watch them share the link, right? You can click back. Is sharing a link about an information to your organization any different than passing out a flyer on the street? No, it's not. It's not that complicated. There's some basic things that translate to the digital world. Of course, the great thing about the physical world is we can see the person and know who the individual is. A lot of times in social media, we just get sentiment. We know that a video that we sent out, that we posted, it got picked up, everybody's talking about it. There's social monitoring tools, and I'll list them in a moment, that can actually measure the sentiment, right? Are you trending? Are you positive in Twitter feeds? People saying good things about you out there, people that are blogging about your vertical, about your area of things, right? A lot of that is sentiment. Not everything's tracked back to you, but it's not that different than the stuff that you try to witness in the personal world, in the physical world. So, here are some things, and I'm not going to answer. There was a guy that did a great seminar earlier this morning who talked about some measurement tools, but these are some things: Radian 6, Hootsuite, RG Metrics, and Cloud. I'm going to come back to Cloud. These people, it's getting cheaper and cheaper and cheaper for you to do this quickly. You're not going to sit there with your TweetDeck unless you're an awfully big organization and have that kind of capability to do that. These people will tell you what's going on out there. You can. A lot of them will take your donors, they'll search the names, they'll find out what's going on. Cloud, and I'll come back to that. The reason I love Cloud is, you actually give them a set of characteristics that you're looking for. They'll tell you who's got some social media sway out there with Twitter followers and the rest of it, based on information that you're looking for, not just because you're talking about Justin Bieber 3,000 times, right? Who cares if they talk about sending pictures of their cat? That doesn't make them anybody that's an advocate for your organization. Cloud actually gives you a social score. It tells you who's out there, somebody that you want to get to know, or somebody that's on your file that you may want to use to amplify your message out there. Starting a new program campaign, you have a new program video, you've got a problem, right? You're in the newspaper. You want to know who the people are out there that can blog, that can tweet, that actually help you. Do we have anybody from PETA in here? People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. A year or so ago, they went through a debacle. They have 6 people that's in their social media department. They monitor. When they get in a problem or controversy, they immediately contact those people, release the story, and they let it go. They let it go viral with the people that will amplify their message. And a lot of times the most basic thing of social media is amplifying your message is really not that much complicated. So, how the frack do I use social BI? Sobi data. Frack, again, we all know what frack means. Watch Battlestar Galactica. If you haven't, you need to get it on Netflix. So, first thing you need to do is you need to have a CRM that can store this information. Too often we're trying to shove all of this data into a donation system. I'm not going to mention names and I'm not going to mention the competition out there, but if you want a holistic view of your donor, if you want all of your departments to access the information, our old databases that many of us are using are not going to work anymore. I guarantee you within 5 years, some of the leaders are not going to be the leaders anymore unless they change. Right? Everybody needs to see all of the data. The reason I was brought on to Avectra is because our big membership associations have really large foundations that do fundraising. Membership and fundraising wanted to see the person as part of the organization. They wanted a holistic view of that person, right? So they wanted us to open up our system so all fundraising could come out of the same system. So I could have a membership profile, a fundraising profile, a social profile, advocate profile. And guess what happened as soon as we opened up the system and started putting this in and bringing in this and asking them to upgrade? They immediately asked for row-level security because membership and fundraising did not want each other to see the data. Right? Not smart, right? This is what we did. You told us to do it, and now you guys won't share the data. So, not necessarily an easy thing to do. So, social CRM, in this definition, really is about linking social commentary, action, and feedback from websites and social networking with your hard data. The fact that they gave $50 to you last March is still important. What's really important is to know whether or not they're social, they have a Facebook account, a Twitter account, do they pass on your videos when you get out there, are they speaking to their friends about you? You've got to overlay that data. It's not either or, it's in addition to. What other data you're collecting, it's time to start collecting, to the extent that you can, social media data. And again, sometimes you don't get it on the individual, sometimes it's about sentiment overall. And when I say sentiment, I was playing a Smash song earlier. Who's a fan of Smash? Raise your hand high. Smash is a great show. It's the new Glee for adults, right? So Smash is about getting a show to Broadway. It's about Marilyn Monroe. They bring it to Boston. It's finally going to make its run. Rebecca Dubé sort of messed up how to say her name, right? We love her. Don't we love who eventually got to play Marilyn anyway? So what happens at the end of a Marilyn Monroe story? She dies. She commits suicide. So what they found was, and what they sort of knew intuitively, but didn't know until they actually witnessed it, nobody gets up and claps at a Broadway show when it ends in a suicide. Breaks dead on a bed, naked. Not cool. So what they do, the writers in the audience, they're watching, they're loving the play all the way until the end, and then people sort of don't know what to do at the end of the suicide. In the physical world, they were simply measuring sentiment. The audience didn't like it. They didn't respond to the message. They didn't respond to it. They went back and rewrote it. Joe DiMaggio now comes at the end, says something about Marilyn. Marilyn comes out, sings an uplifting song about when you see people in need, reach out, don't leave them there. And of course, if you sing Happy Birthday, still think of me. But it's this positive, uplifting message, and the whole audience stands up and claps. All they did in the physical world was be able to watch sentiment. And in the digital world, some of this stuff, I just want to get in your head, you're just trying to find out what the sentiment is. So a lot of social media, I think, is amazing for instant feedback on the marketing campaigns you're doing. We still have yet to see how much it translates into a lot of fundraising dollars for us, but we know it's invaluable for gauging our messages. That is clear. That is totally clear. And then I'm going to get to the one great thing I've learned at this conference that I got to really blow out when I go back to the office. So, we also score it. At my company, we actually came up with something called the A score. We can score every field of data in our database. Penelope Burke spoke this morning. Do you know what she says is one of the most important pieces of information that we don't do anything with? I'm going to tell you because I can't hear back. Somebody calls in to change their address or their phone number. We're lucky in an organization if we treat that well, right? But imagine what that person's saying. Hey, I'm moving. I changed my phone number. Don't forget to follow me and try to raise money for me and engage with me. Now, not everybody moves all the time, right? So that's going to be a limited audience. But that's an amazing piece of information. So we can go in, and now when a change of address comes that's from somebody that's been from the outside, not from a staff change, we can put that as a 10 or whatever the client wants to do. That's an incredible piece of information. So we score, we have different scales, participation, membership, fundraising, social. We roll it all up into something we call the A score. And the reason I did that as a fundraiser was I was so tired of queries and reports. To get at real data, to find out what's moving through my file, really, enough already. I want my database to do more for me. I want my database to do more. I want to pull numbers. I don't want to pull 17 reports, dump them to an Excel spreadsheet, and try to figure out what's going on. So scoring, and I know one of our competitors, who's also in this audience, IMAS, ASI, is also out of the association world. I know that they started to score too. I can tell you I think ours is better, you're right here. But anyway, what I'm telling you is eventually, all of your data systems, you need to start demanding that they're scored. It's getting too hard to notice trends with the human eye. You don't have enough time to pull those reports up. You just don't have it, right? Cloud will go out and actually score your people socially. You can bring that social score into your file. You can know who's active socially. They may be the people, who's done a capital campaign here? Right, you do a capital campaign, you're in the silent phase, you line up your big money people. Well, think of your advocates that way. You're about ready to launch a new program, want to see what they think, right? Let them go out, let them test it, send them the message first, right? See if they share it, get some kind of feedback. What happened right before Facebook went public with GM? GM said, I've got almost as much money as the federal government. They have more money than any of all of us have here to spend marketing. And they said, I don't know if likes work on Facebook. I don't know if a like on Facebook actually sells my cars. Now, if GM hasn't figured that out, with all their resources at Madison Avenue, trust me, don't worry, don't freak out if you haven't figured it out either, because this is still new. We don't know yet. However, GM and car dealers, they still use social media big time. What ends up being more effective to them is they go out and reach car enthusiasts, right? Before they unveil a new car, they let them see it, they let them explore it online, or maybe a personal visit. They create a story. They let those people start to blog about it and go viral. But they don't know if likes work. I don't know who likes me. I can't get their email address or their phone number, right? So what if you have 10,000 likes? It's a crap. It may not mean anything. It might, but it may not. And the other thing is, of course, I hope you didn't do their IPO. So. All right, so these are some of the things you want to figure out. Some of this is sentiment. Some of this stuff is that some of this stuff you can actually bring back to your individual customer record, who blogs about you, who forwards your email. If you send out an email, it does click back. I don't know how totally it works. I'm not a technology guy. I just work with my R&D department. But it clicks back, and you can tell how many times that email got forwarded by that person, by that unique identifier. No different than when you click out, send out an email about a campaign, they click on it, and immediately takes you to the web page. Your source code is on there about what fund it is, what the interest was. You pull that information right back to your database. Not that much different here. What segment forwards pictures or programs in your promotion? Again, I didn't sit through all of the gentleman's measurements that I was talking about this morning, but who's amplifying your message? It's probably people that are under 35, as Penelope was talking about today. Who mentions you on Twitter? You may not know the exact person, but you can be sensitive. What segments are amplifying? Who has a Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn account? There are social monitor crawlers that will go out. We actually have one built in. More and more people will have it. That will go out with your file, pull everybody that's on your donor list that has these accounts if they're trackable. Some people's permissions don't allow them, like on Facebook. LinkedIn is very easy to find, right? Because everybody wants their name out there. They got their name. It pulls back into your database. You can have their Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. But guess what? If you don't have a field that says, do they have a LinkedIn account? Yes, no, right? Do they have a Facebook account? Yes, no. You're never going to be able to query on it, right? But how amazing is that? So rather than assuming that everybody has a Facebook account or a LinkedIn or a Twitter, wouldn't it be great, say, rolling out a new campaign? I'm going to send out my 1,000 people that have a LinkedIn account or a Twitter account, and what I just said, I'm going to ask them to please forward my email about this great new program that we're launching and let them build a little buzz first. That's important to know. And it also seems individual, right? To be able to write the letter and say, hi, dear whatever, we know that you have a Twitter account and we're so excited or hope that, blah, 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 right? It's a little more personal. Okay, now, this is where my incredible epiphany, it happened when I was writing this up. It's been verified at other conferences. So, an activity many of you are already doing that already gives you a measure of sharing, return on investment, potential new donor acquisition, and it can be traced back exactly to your donor or your prospect, and you don't need a social monitoring service to understand it. You already have this, most of you, at your fingertips. Can anybody tell me what it is? And before, do you mind if you give me a glass of water over there right beyond? Yeah, sorry, I go over. Oh, no, I found it, thank you. Who can tell me what you already have? It's the easiest software out there. Oh, I just gave it away a little bit. What do you think this is? I'm so excited. Donation form on your website. Pretty close. Not close enough yet. The problem is they don't share that necessarily, right? Come on. Build on that. The donation page on your website. What can go viral? Where can you see somebody sharing it? Where can you get donations from it? New prospects from it? What? Not a website, but it's got part of it. And I'm telling you, this is going to be so much more important in the very near future than I really was giving it credit for. Personal fundraising pages and peer-to-peer fundraising. It's been mentioned a couple of times in this session, and I'm going to go back and we're going to build a lot more of this and link up with some of these partners here. Think about that. They send out their page, their friends, and they sponsor an event, a walk, ride, run, something else. It doesn't necessarily have to be that kind of a thing. Their friends give you their email address, you know how much money they gave. They post a comment on your friend's book, right, on their page to say exactly, so that there's some sentiment going on. This is an amazing tool, and absolutely, as Penelope said today, the newly acquired donors over 35 or 40 years old, they already have their stuff. You got to start building a file from the other 35-year-olds who build your future generation for your organization, and they do this. You know what? I'm doing the Chicago 8 drive. I got about halfway through my Contera page, and I was like, I don't want to write my personal story, right? I'm just going to write him a check for $1,000. I really like the ride. But now, I may not be the guy that you want because I may not bring you new donors for AIDS, because if I just write a check, I'm only one person. But think about that. That is, and you can pull that right back to the cost. Think about your cost per acquisition. And I learned this morning from Penelope, although some of this stuff I already knew. Direct mail. Direct mail is still at a 1% acquisition rate. It's 1% if you're lucky. And most of those people that screw up your follow-up are gone within 3 years anyway, if not less, right? You got nothing left. Yet we still measure by how many donors we have, right? Not necessarily the money. Here's what I didn't know about the peer-to-peer fundraising, which I think is an amazing statistic that I'm going to give to you right from here if I can read it off my iPad. I'm getting old, like I said, I'm 84. So, this is what's amazing about this. When people were asking about event donors, about people that sponsor, 54% of the people that sponsor, their friends, said they did it because they cared about the organization. I really thought that most people did it because they only liked me. Well, I hope they liked me, but I really thought that was the driving force. So a little more than half actually liked the organization that their friends sponsored. So as you heard in this conference, if the new world is really about referral and word of mouth, about, I love these shoes, buy these shoes, Jan, fantastic, right? If we really take recommendations from our friends more than marketers and advertisers, this is the way. This is going to be the way for the new people. 50% said they were with the cause, and of the 50%, 14% gave a gift. And 17% in our study said they would give a gift by the end of the year. 14%. You mailed out an electronic web page where they came to your site and they downloaded it. That cost you almost nothing. Now, I know events are horrendous to put on, right? Who does events here? They're horrible, right? They're exhausting, but boy, they do feel good when they're over, right? You feel like you put on a Broadway play, especially a major donor event, right? Wow, that is incredible statistics. Now, first of all, most of us are lucky if our friend ever thanks us again for sponsoring, right? And secondly, the organizations, we do a terrible job as nonprofits.
following up on those people that actually sponsor. We asked Penelope, do you have to change the way you follow these people that came in through a sponsor? And it's still too new, right? A lot of this stuff, we don't have 5 years of data necessarily yet across multiple organizations to figure it out. However, what she did say, and I think this is intuitive, implied, is that you really got to figure out some way to go back and engage with the original person they sponsored and also do it through social media, right? Because as we know in the membership world and even public television, people that come in on premiums get hooked on premiums, right? Somebody that comes in on direct mail stays on direct mail, right? Somebody that comes in on the phone probably stay with the phone. She was talking about how Canada, face-to-face, is really big again, right? One-on-one interaction with somebody. And then what do? We jump them into a mail program. I came to you face-to-face. Can you imagine doing that to major donor, right? You go out to major donor, you're the boss or whoever, you get a $100,000 gift and you dump them in the direct mail program? Great, not cool. So if they came in through social media on these web pages and they have somebody that's sponsored, I think we as fundraisers have to figure out a way to leverage that. And I was putting this together and it was dawning me because I kept saying, wow, all the stuff I'm looking at is sensitive. I really need information I can pull back on my file. This, you can pull back in your file. And it drives down the cost of your acquisition tremendously. So there's a couple of people here that are doing this. I think this really, I just didn't give as much credence to it as I think I should be as a fundraiser and as someone that's helping move fundraising software where I think it needs to go. So anyway, that was it. I'm so excited about that. Okay. Does everybody agree with me? Does anybody not? You think that's a big thing? I mean, it's sort of like new, but think about it. If we have to build our files with younger people and they do this, why aren't we trying to put everything to an individual webpage, whatever we can, right? And maybe this month we've got to raise $50,000 for some new animal welfare program, or serve 2,500 more children in our YMCA programs, whatever it might be. Why not set up personal? Why not try to start moving more of your fundraising communication message that way? You may hate all social media, think it's terrible, I can't use it, but I think we've got to start doing this a lot more for all of our programs, and not just for run, walk, ride. Okay, I'll get off my soapbox. I'm Italian, I like to lecture. And I eat. All right, so track the responses again. The people with high social scores, back to social media. And this goes, so people that have personal fundraising pages, when you're querying the segment, do they help you bring in donors? Do they have higher renewal rates? Do they have larger average gifts? Higher frequency of giving? These are new things that we're going to have to apply to our new social media segment, just like we did the 0 to 24.99. Sharing, amplification is a new metric for us. It's going to be just as important as cost per dollar raised, an average gift. Does my campaign get shared a lot? Does it drive down my acquisition cost? We've got to start thinking of that. And so, if so, put it into some of your process, right? So I'm using Moves Management very loosely here because Moves Management to me is a workflow, right? I want to get somebody to go where I want them to go. If you're in the sales world, right, they're a 10, they're a prospect, they're a 5, we're getting warm. They're a 3, they got a proposal, 1, I'm going to close. You score things all the time. You all make priority lists. Why not do them with your fundraising? So same thing with Moves Management. You can put scores into a process. If I know back here that some of these people are high social scores, then why not, when you do a volunteer thank you call, as you should, for a certain dollar amount, ask them to post a video of your mission on their Facebook. Why not? Why not have them share it, right? When you provide the donor with meaningful information of their gift at work, because you all do that, and we all know that the number one reason people don't give again is what? We never tell them what the frack we do with their money. And we ask them again. We never say, thank you so much, Mrs. Jones, for the $100 you gave us. Because of that, the following kids went to summer camp. Awesome. We never do enough of that. So why not send them a success story via video? And I say video just because it's, people are doing this in pastime, using it on their mobile phones, doing it all over the place. Why not share your mission on a video? I'll tell you a quick story. A friend of mine, she sent this great company, I don't know what her name is, but there was a video of her that said, John, I just wanted to let you know that I'm involved with this organization that raises money for young women's health issues on the Tibetan Plateau. Now, Nothing against young women in the Tibetan Plateau, but I can seriously tell you that is the last thing on my list in terms of what I'm interested in giving money to, right? She gives me this pitch, then a video comes on, and they tell me all about the program, and they tell me how much my dollars will spend. Then at the end of it was posted all the friends that I knew from my friend that had given money, and how much they pledged. And I thought, like, crap, what a schmuck. I don't want my friend to know that I didn't give it. I gave $600 to Young Women's Health Issues in Tibet over the course of a year. Right? I don't give $600 to many. Mostly I give it to myself. But really? That's what I did. That was incredible. That was social. And then at the end of it, after I did it, she thanked me based on what my reply was. Wow. That was awesome. That was awesome. I wish I could give you the name. I haven't tracked it yet. Q&A, boring old Q&A, back and forth. That's all it is. I'm talking to people, they ask me a question, I get to answer them back, and everybody else gets to watch the talking. Measure it. Anybody know Dan Rome? Anybody go to the N10 conference in San Francisco? Dan Rome on the back of a napkin, how to do all of your presentations with stick figures. This is as close as I got to this conference. I was a little bit, I put up a measure. But measure it. We're not out of time to talk about that. How do you get started? I think for all of you fundraisers, like anything, treat this as a strategic plan. We all love strategic plans, right? We love working with our boards on them, putting a volunteer in charge. They're so much fun. What's great about a strategic plan is you have a goal, you have a timeline, you figure out how you're going to measure success. Is it money? Is it amplification, donors, whatever it is? Determine the tools you're going to need, then identify the staff and volunteer responsibility. A strategic plan is great for any new initiative. Listen, right? Isn't that awesome? Which you'll have to work with those people, but listen to what the people are saying about you online. Start listening, store the data, score it, measure it, verify. Change your strategies based on what you learn, and that's it.